Λοιπόν, να ξεκινήσουμε και να καλέσω στο βήμα Mr. Agustí Romero. Είναι κάτοχος PhD στην Τεχνολογία Τροφίμων. Είναι Γεωπόνος Μηχανικός, ερευνητής του Τμήματος Τροφίμων και επικεφαλής της ερευνητικής ομάδας Olive and Oil του Ινστιτούτου Αγροδιατροφικής Έρευνας και Τεχνολογίας και είναι και καθηγητής στον τομέα του ελαιολάδου σε 4 πανεπιστήμια και πραγματικά congratulations. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Let me help, please.
Yes,
It's okay for you?
it's okay for me, yeah? Okay, thanks a lot to the organizers, Mrs. and Mr. Terpintiris, for inviting me here. The first talk is about, okay, that is, how are we, IRTA is a public research institute we have in Catalonia, and we do applied research joined with our growers, our master miller, our traders, just to try to help him to survive and to go ahead with their business. So our research is always a little challenging, and we always face whatever they ask us to do. So this is something that I will try to explain now in a general point of view, because now we are facing a new frame in Europe related to the Green Deal that is going to determine our behavior, the possibilities from our growers to produce olives in the next years. And we are very, very, very worried about that, and how to technically can we give them tools to do a good job. So this is the idea of this first speech. And behind of all, we always have the quality of the product that it's very, very relevant for us. So when we talk about quality, this is a multi-component concept, you know. I'm not going to be very, very difficult, but basically we have different 4 main issues to be concerned. Like on the base, there is the food safety. This is something that we don't put on the packaging. We don't explain the consumer this is safe. This is assumed that it's certain. It's a certainty of the consumer that the food is safe. In the case of extra virgin olive oil, the same. And this is related to pesticide residues and things like that. But we are not going to talk about this. Then we have sensorial quality. Sensorial quality, we always try to explain to our customers something about the sensorial characteristics of our food, especially our olive oil, our extra virgin olive oil. However, this is a very subjective concept, and what we must be sure is that the consumer doesn't like our oil, they are not going to repeat again with it. So we can talk about good extra premium qualities, but we have to think about, okay, what does our customer like? And if we can teach them a little more, okay, that's good. But however, we need to understand the consumer. And then there are nutritional facts. All of us it's mandatory to inform the customer on the label about the nutritional facts of the olive oil. So we have informed them. But this is, okay, something that the customer use to decide among foods, more than among varieties in the same food. And then finally, there are the most impactful is the image and what they call now the concept of the food that can determine the final decision of the customer to choose our brand or not. And all the new producing technology that we are now developing in the orchards is focused to explain these final consumers at the end of the farm to fork food chain. What are we doing with the process? So this is very important nowadays, and we have to find the correct way to keep this information traceable along the chain. And even when we change the technology we apply in the orchard, we always have to keep in mind that if it can change or not the quality of the food as well. So because some decisions are very, very critical. So, and this is what the Green Deal is now defining from the European Farm to Fork strategy. It's trying to rethink all the system. And now we are talking about sustainability in food production as a big topic that will affect a lot the production in Europe, because we are talking about just in less than 10 years, in the horizon 2030, it seems that now they are delaying a little, but okay, this is the first goal. We have, as growers, we have to reduce by 50% the pesticides that we apply, especially those which are more hazardous, that used to be the most effective as well. And we have to rise till 25% the organic production in Europe and in each country, which is something easy to say, but very, very difficult to implement in many countries, especially in the islands. In the islands, it's almost impossible to do that with a good efficiency. So all the concept of sustainability must be redefined, and we have to consider all the different aspects that will make the olive production sustainable in the future or not. And we are not going to go in detail with all the different aspects, but these are which we are working with in our institution at different intensities, because not all of them are the same, have the same urgency. For sure, we need to have a high olive oil price. This is a main goal, because it's going to define if we are sustainable or not. And in Spain, this is really challenging, because our reference prices are so low that it's very, very hard for our producers to reach a great price in the oil in the Spanish market as well. We can try to export, but not in Spain. Then we have to keep all the costs of production and all the cost of pressing affordable, low enough to make feasible to make money with this, which is always another goal, which is not always easy to do. And then all the things about circular economy, valorization of byproducts, all this must be kept in mind, and we have to keep the growers and the presses concerned about this, and developing technologies and applying them and making these technologies feasible. Something that can be implemented in the system, otherwise it's just theoretics. For sure, oleotourism and other external inputs are going to be most and most relevant. And then I'm going to explain a little more about, okay, to keep the orchard productivity high enough, because we are now facing the climate change that's going to fight against our growers to keep the fertility high enough in our agrosystems. So in the Green Deal really concerns a lot about soil fertility, keeping or even improving it. The water use, it's a scarce resource in the Mediterranean basin, so it's going to be harder and harder to have a good water management. Even the nitrogen and other fertilizers, it's going to be hard to manage them, because we have to reduce the use of chemical fertilizers as well. And then in the frame of climate change, we are facing big problems like erosion, because we have less rains but heavy rains. So the loss of soil, it's a big problem to keep then the fertility of our orchards. And then, you know, when the climate change in the way that it's happening nowadays, we have pests and disease that rise which were not a problem in the past, and now big problems, and the Green Deal says that we cannot fight against them, so this is a big deal, a big problem for us. So just some ideas from how do we face each one of the problems. In Catalonia, it's a small region in northeast Spain, and we have very, very different situations. We have trees growing in the mountains with very, very low fertility soils, but we have as well super high density plantations, big plantations close to the sea with very high fertility. So the problems are different, and the way for them it's different as well. Anyway, nowadays, you know, instead of thinking about an average management of the field, we are more and more trying to move towards something more particular. What we call smart farming or precision farming means that we are more aware about the fertility of the tree, of the piece of soil that where the tree grows, and how to manage each tree, because this is an easy way for the future to reduce inputs, because maybe not all the field it's going to need water or pesticides or fertilizers, so we can reduce the overall consumption, thinking in terms of single trees. For instance, this is a real example of one experimental field in our institute applying traditional cultural practices. We planted it in 1988, and after 3 years it started harvesting. This is a way of present the crop trend from year to year. Green means a high crop, red means low crop, and we can pixel our field in terms of trees, and it took, using traditional cultural practices, more than 10 years to reach some kind of synchronicity among the trees of the orchard. This orchard include up to 10 different varieties. And you can see that after 10 years in 2001, it started getting some kind of synchronicity. All the trees were in green or all in red. So after that, we can work with the plantation. With the new smart farming approach, the idea is to reduce the number of years we need to reach this synchronicity. And then when we do that, we will try to fight against the alternate breeding, which is very typical of olive production. So these are the new approaches that we are facing. And because climate is affecting all the system, and what we can say now is that, okay, by the next years, it's clear that summers are going to be warmer, that winters are going to be colder, and the relative humidity is going to be lower, and the rain, the global rain, the total rain of a year will be lower as well, but when it rains heavily. So we are going to manage the problem of rains in a different way. What we know from experimental studies around the world, when carbon dioxide increases, is that under irrigated condition, the productivity can increase. Whereas if we are in non-irrigated areas, the productivity will decrease, which is a big handicap for us. Because in Spain, at least, more than 50% of the olive production is under rain-fed condition. We know that the climate affects the physiology of the tree under many, many different ways. One, that it's perceived by the grower. All of you that are growers can see that during the last years, the blooming time happens earlier and earlier. We don't know if we are reaching a limit where the synchronicity among pollen donants and female receptors is going to break, and we are going to have problems with fruit set. And as well, we know that the ripening starts earlier as well. And we don't know which could be the consequence of this. By now, the first consequence is that we are harvesting with warmer days, and now we have problems with the temperature of the fruits when they arrive to the mill and all this. So, and all this affects the quality in certain way. As general figures, we know that we are losing oil. The yield of the fruits is decreasing, not because we are pressing less the fruits, but because the fruit itself has less oil content, and we have to understand why and how to solve this problem. And even due to this hot condition when we harvest nowadays, the aroma, the flavors of the oil are hardly developed because of the too high temperature when it arrives into the crushers, and in the crusher, the enzymatic pathway that delivers the aroma can be stopped. So new problems that need new solutions. This is our job in general. Carbon footprint was a big issue in the last years, and still it's now, and a huge job was done in Europe and in many countries to teach the growers how to manage them. In Europe, it was carried out a project called Carbocert, among others, that faced this problem for different species. One was olive, and we have a general guidance for the case of olive that you can check on this website. And in general, as a summary, the conclusion was, okay, if you want to increase the carbon fixation in your orchard, you have to try, if possible, because not always it's feasible, to crush the pruning cuttings and to incorporate them in the ground, or to keep vegetable coverage, just to manage many things related with fertility, but as well related to the temperature of the plant and of the soil. So we already have a lot of useful information that it's nowadays available for the general growers. Soil erosion, it's a big problem we are facing, and that will be even worse in the next years, in the coming years, due to the heavy rain events that we are suffering. This is a big handicap that you can observe not only in traditional orchards. We have observed it in super high density orchards as well, and we have to fight against this big problem, because when we lose soil, we are losing fertility and many things. So nowadays, it is running an European project called Sustainolive, and the project faces different topics, and one of them is erosion. And as a general rules now, what is as advice to the growers is that you have to try to manage some kind of vegetal cover, either natural or artificial, just to inner cover, just to try to avoid the damage of the rain when arrives on the ground. Non-tillage, this is not always available, or minimum tillage, are the new advices. However, they are not always possible, depending on many factors, agronomical factors of the field. And increase the organic matter of our soils. It's always has been for the last 100 years a big problem and a big goal that we have to try to solve. Okay, emerging pests. When climate change a lot, this is a report from 10 years ago here in Greece, noticing that some traditional pests which were not a problem in the past now start being a problem. Now we have Lleida, we have Dacus, all the pests and diseases are rising. Europe is telling us that we cannot use pesticides or fungicides effective against them, so what to do? And this is a big problem. So new European projects are running, trying to face these new problems and trying to find solution in the short term. Like this is an European project where we participate, Castillo Canena as well, which is Novaterra, that focus on vineyard and olive and try to test new pesticides and fungicides and fertilizers, organic, many of them are organic, some others not. That could be a solution for the future. However, this is a hard job, and really we are failing in many of the molecules that we are trying with. The olive fly was of Black Tocera, which is Dacus, the same pest. It has been a big problem in the Mediterranean Sea for many years. In Catalonia, it arrived later. It was a big fight in the south. Now it's a big problem in the north. Now it's arriving to South France as well. And we were worried about it from 20 years ago. So we developed some studies at that time to check the efficacy of kaolin as a preventive spray against olive fly. And now this is accepted, it's permitted for organic production. At that time it was not. It was a new product coming from other fruits that we were trying to move towards the olive world. And what we did was to compare against classical mass trapping systems. We did, for instance, this is a short study of only 2 years that performed fantastically well. You can see in red and pink what happened with the fruits damaged by the olive fly after 1 year, and in green what happened when we spray as prevention in early August with kaolin, with different moments, different dilutions, and now our growers know a lot how to manage kaolin. At that time we didn't know, so we had to develop all the knowledge, and now it's something that it's useful, but it's not the solution for all the situations. So we had to still make much more studies for a big problem that we thought that in the future can be absolutely dramatic for our growers. And so then we found now there are other research teams working on this topic, very efficacy. And we found that when we compare varieties where the egg deposition happens earlier against varieties where this happens later, and again the same when where the fly has a very high severity of damage or a lower level of severity, we could correlate this with some chemical compounds emitted by the tree during summer at different moments, depending on the variety, that seems that are attractive or that are repellents for the olive fly. And now, okay, the idea now is to manage this information, trying to work with the olive fly with something which is endemic, typical of the behavior of this insect. And then, just to finish, all these cultural practices that we are developing will have some kind of influence on the final quality of the oil. The new agronomical goals, we said before, focus on minimizing the inputs. So we will try to reduce the water supply and just focusing in critical moments. We have to substitute mineral nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium by other organic sources of these compounds, even biochemicals, biostimulants that will help to the tree to survive when we are overstressing it, or the integrated pest management and the alternative pesticides that are being delivered in the market, so will be adopted by the growers, and this will have some kind of influence on the oil. We will develop, we will implement methodologies to increase the carbon fixation, and this will have, again, consequences. And then, as a general rule, we always try to balance the alternate beating of the olive tree. That means managing the pruning, managing the fertilization, the water, different things that at the end affect as well the quantity and quality of the oil. By now, what we know is that if we don't overstress the tree, if we only reach certain stress, this even could be good for the oil in terms of polyphenols, because the polyphenol is a marker of the stress of the tree. So when we reach some kind of stress, the polyphenol content tends to increase, and then that means that the shelf life can be longer. It has consequences on the taste, because oils become bitter and pungent sometimes, so this can affect our customers, and we have to know how to manage it. And okay, that was to sum up what I was trying to explain you. Thank you.